Me too. Hello, my friends. It's David. Let's talk about fear. Okay, talk about fear. What a weird way to just get started, right? Anyways, I just wanted to hop here because this is one of the things that I've been avoiding for a while. Just sitting here and being sincere about stuff. I have lots of fears, just like everyone. Natural human condition, being fearful about stuff. But I see that this is something that we've been having since, I don't know, just like caverns back there, like when we didn't have, well, we still live in places that resemble those caverns somehow. It's a bit different right now because we have water coming in and we have electrical light, electricity, all sorts of commodities to help out the living, tools, but the principles are the same. And we're fearful stuff that usually comes from the outside. We're fearful of stuff that's gonna, kind of shake our abilities of being comfortable in this place. And, especially stuff that's gonna threaten our lives or threaten what keeps us safe at a certain level. And my fears are definitely related to somehow, related to that. I can't exclude myself from the crowd in this sense. Well, one of the things that I usually do is just, avoid getting myself exposed to stuff that I believe it's out of my control. But very often I get to ponder that control doesn't really exist, and then I see myself here, something I usually don't, practice, sitting here and having this conversation. Especially when I know there's a whole lot of people out there who might probably, be thinking to themselves, what a weird person is sitting there alone, all by himself, doing what? Very often I fear that. I don't know why specifically, but even though I know that if I spend enough time here, expose myself, using the tools I have to reach out to more people, that could eventually bring me, all sorts of possibilities. While just staying here without doing it wouldn't, ever. So at one side I have the possibility, at the other side I don't have it. Even though it's a bit of a mystery if it's going to happen or not. Well, at least in the first steps, when you haven't fully integrated yourself into a systematic approach, where are you going to put it, how are you going to spread it out. It's kind of a mystery, of course. Over time, once you niche down, once you start talking to a specific audience, once you start utilizing specific tools to stream it out there, then the conversation starts getting narrower and narrower, and then the sort of practicality behind the practice becomes something more tangible. And I see that we're constantly looking for the tangibility of things, right? I'm myself, I'm a person who usually goes for the functional layers. I usually look for what's functional about this practice. What's functional about purchasing this or that thing? Because just accumulating stuff for me doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know where I started, when I started thinking about it. Where does it come from? If it comes from my parents, probably. If it comes from, there's this thing called RNA, which is basically a part of the DNA that carries information from when my parents, were, before they actually starting, trying to have a baby, which ended up becoming me and my brother and sister. While they were having their intimate relationships, what's going on in their minds, in their lives, their worries, what they were happy about, was basically the RNA part of the DNA taking, doing its function, which is basically activating these things that at the end of the day, they accumulate and they influence how we respond to stuff in life, especially fears, especially the things that makes us happy, the way we respond to abundance in life, the way we respond to having access to stuff, and how do we use it. That's one of the reasons why rich kids behave different from poor kids, and later in life they also have a different approach to stuff. Of course, it doesn't necessarily state that if you were born poor, you're going to stay that way for the rest of your life. I've seen many people who, does the opposite. And, it's quite often to have rich kids actually not being so good at managing their wealth at the end of the day because they didn't work for that. But this is not a statement. This is not exactly what I'm looking for in this conversation. Talk about fears, and when it comes to fears, we often talk about failure. I'm someone who's been specializing in failures. I wanted to play the piano. It was one of the things that I remember, like in my early stages of life, being really willing to do so. Play the piano. But for a long time, I didn't have one. I didn't have access to it. And then I remember one day in my youth, I was about 14 to 15 years old, and I woke up and I looked around and said, well, I have, I can't say that I have nothing because I have plenty of stuff. I have a place to live. I have, stuff in my house, just like tools, and I have stuff to feed myself. But I don't have a piano. What do I do about it? And if I wait here, the piano is not going to fall from the sky. So what do I do about it? Then I look and I see this wardrobe. I say, wait a minute. This wardrobe actually does a pretty good job as a wardrobe. But it's not nearly as close to a piano as I wanted it to be. Then I started pondering about it. In a few minutes I said, well, I do want to play the piano. So if the closest thing I have is a wardrobe, then I'm going to turn it into something that resembles a piano. Then I rip the door off and I turn it into a table and take a white chalk, started drawing the keyboard. And then I take the back part of the wardrobe and I turn it into a blackboard. I went to the library and took some music, just like music theory books. And then that was the first day. And I can tell you, I still feel the excitement of doing so. I know that there's a lot, the kind of progression that I allowed myself to that day. Up to these days, I see that there's a lot of potential. Every time that I look at the wardrobe, I remember what is my wardrobe today of something that I want really badly, but I don't have. It's kind of far away from my reality right now. And then I start thinking, how can I implement that same concept to get a little closer to my goals today? Because we always have something we're looking for. We always have something we're going for. We want to learn, we want to acquire a lifestyle, a language we're learning. If you want to move to a different place, there's always something that we're looking for. And then every time that I apply that principle, I see that I literally get closer to it. Well, I can tell you that a week later, after the moment that I, started practicing, imagining the sounds, and just practicing what I could, I realized that I started realizing stuff. That playing the piano was not really just about making sounds, but sitting, just by sitting, you have to think a lot about a lot of stuff if you're not trained to it. It sounds natural for someone who's already playing it, but the first thing you do about playing the piano is sitting, usually in a bench in front of the keyboard, and then you perceive it. You have like a physical body has weight, and it somehow influences what's going to be played. And then you start perceiving that your height influences how it's going to be played at the end of the day. So I started perceiving all this stuff, that it was not really about the music theory alone, but a whole set of concepts. The space, having a realization, a visualization of what kind of space that I was dealing with. Because the keys, usually they have a specific length, in both sides, both axes. And actually 3 axes. If you think you have, one axis basically going in one direction, the other axis going in the other direction, the other axis going in a different depth direction. And the way you move, it encompasses the whole playing the piano thing. And if I haven't gotten myself exposed to it in the first place, having to draw the piano keyboard in the first place, I wouldn't even think about it. It could sound quite simple, just, I'm going to draw a keyboard here. But when I thought, wait a minute, how far is one key from the other? How wide? How tall? You know what I'm saying? And then subtle things started, coming to my mind, and started thinking about it more objectively. And I get myself here doing this very exercise right now. I have a mission, I have a purpose why I'm doing it. And I'm 100% sure that what I'm doing right now is just like drawing that piano keyboard on the wardrobe's door. It may sound very, newbie. I might probably not have the best settings. I might probably not be the best at delivering it, but I sense that there's something meaningful about it. I have this sensation. Even though I can't describe what it is, I'm willing to fail it until I get to this point. And when I get there, I know that I'm still going to be in the middle of my own journey. And if I get to compare myself to others who are already doing it right now, well, odds are they're going to get motivated on one side, and the other side, it could eventually get demotivated, get just frustrated, because I don't have the tools, because I don't have the pace, because I'm not a professional at doing it. But, well, I see that both sides are actually crucially important to get this thing moving. At the end of the day, I'm super excited about it. Before actually sitting here and deciding, I'm just going to do something different. I'm going to pick up a chair and put there on the camera. I'm just going to start having this conversation without a clue of what I wanted to say. All I wanted, really, was to be sincere. And maybe, come up with some cool stuff, like music is basically the thing I do more naturally. Music usually comes in beats, in verses. And you know well when you finish a verse, and you get to the chorus, and then you get back to a verse, and then, you have a bridge. So there are these instances that together you call music. So I wanted to look at what I was doing, and if I could instantly do it, just translate it or transcribe it to the medium, it would be really, really good because I would doing something that I'm very passionate about and something that I'm used to, something I'm familiar with. And I believe it wouldn't be much of a big deal, not a hurdle, as sometimes it feels like. But I'm really grateful for myself that I got the courage to do it, to come here and get myself exposed. I'm 100% sure that it's a lot of failure. I'm going to look back at it, I'm going to laugh at it, and maybe I'm going to cry, just saying, well, I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to be different. But when I decide, wait a minute, this is not a piano yet, but just a wardrobe's door. And I start realizing that there's true potential. Today I'm 27, at the moment I'm recording it. It's been a while, more than 10 years. Today I do play the piano, and I can tell you, English is not my native language. And at the time, I wanted something that would compare to playing the piano, something that was as hard. And I really badly wanted to learn a different language, and English was the closest thing that I had. So I decided doing it. I decided looking for it, learning it a long time. And that's what I did. Today, I'm capable of speaking a different language and playing the piano. And that's basically it. I think that wraps up what I wanted. Even though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in the first place, I believe that it might probably suffice. So, thank you.